That's not with regard to how much they got in a seeding round. That's their entire valuation. Meta is looking at close to $15 billion to acquire Scale AI. Scale AI is just another, not just, but is another labeling company. Agents eat data. And I think we need to have our data labeled. So two kind of industries that I'm seeing popping up. Obviously, data set focused sales of a large language model, and also data labels. And of course, what news post would be complete without my meme of the month? Who loves vibe coding? I think Cassie Korzakov put out a post about all the different kind of vibe everything that you can do. You should go check her out. She's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant person. She speaks beautifully, presents everything in layman terms. Of course, Google's first decision scientist. She has a degree in psychology, I think it's a PhD even, and she has like a master's in data science. Beautiful mind, and I think she is a big idol for lots of the industry. Has a side hobby of theatre, so which is kind of cool. Anyways, please don't vibe code. You will incur a technical debt like a tsunami about to pour on your head. Enjoy the news. I hope you found this useful, and please like and subscribe and all that jazz. Questions? Sorry. Any questions?
Without questions, you don't know whether to put them on.
Yes. Sorry, questions. Yes.
What about Grok?
Yeah, Grok is interesting. I mentioned in the last meetup that we had that Grok is a very kind of intentional player. People think that that unhinged mode is a bit of a gimmick. I think it's quite strategic because most LLMs please, even if they don't know what the answer is. Grok is one of those, like, it's a bit like Elon Musk, just move fast, break things. It's a point of difference at the very least, and it keeps it in the news. So use it, don't use it. I think something else that's been proven over the past, I don't know, call it 6 months, is a lot of results converge. As in, if you iterate any major model that's out at the moment, your responses will converge over time. So basically, it doesn't matter. Grok, although the unhinged mode, I think is relatively useful, straightforward, blunt, and rude. I believe you. It's not something that's I focused on, but yeah, do you know what the number is? Yeah, nuts. Yes?
Just a warm-up question. Why only American companies, and why Apple and AI was mixed in the AI group? So, and what happened to the others that they said, probably remember, say, like DeepSeek and Alibaba and others that are doing much better in terms of energy?
Yes, so interesting, really, really interesting comment. I've heard rumors that nuclear is very much back. There's also this kind of, I don't know if you call it conspiracy theory. So Peter Dutton was trying to tout nuclear on one of his campaign staples. You couldn't exactly say, hey, I'm going to build a nuclear reactor, Microsoft and Google are going to pay for it, because it's kind of akin to saying we're going to build a wall and the Mexicans are going to pay for it. Nuclear is not a popular opinion. But you can't really point the finger at the big tech companies because they're going to be like, oh, we didn't say that. We just said we're going to have a data center. You sort yourselves out. I think nuclear is... So I promise I'll get around to your question. It's a very roundabout way. It's going to be the next clean energy, in my personal opinion, because the emissions are water vapor. But we'll see where that goes. In terms of energy usage wastage, this is kind of what I think we're moving towards slowly. Big data centers need big pieces of land, as do radioactive waste. Australia has a lot of unused land, and I think the question of efficiency may become less relevant. Maybe today it's going to cost a lot of money, a lot of resources, both token-wise, financially, even cost to train. Alibaba and DeepSeek are going to bring out competitive models all the time. And I think it's a little bit of catch up or forcing, as I kind of mentioned in the last update, in our last meetup, forcing the big tech players to play their hands early. And not iterate incrementally, like 1%, 5% at a time, but saying, like, look, we need to bring out a new model to beat the DeepSeek and beat the Alibaba Quen, is it? It's, I don't know. I want to comment on it, but it seems like it's less interesting than the next generation of models brought out by the big tech companies. So it's forcing them to stay competitive, basically. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
We can discuss later, but
yeah.
If somebody else has a question, fine. I have a heavier question for the warm-up.
Warm-up question, all right. Any other questions?
Maybe do one thing.
Oh, do you want to? Okay,
yeah.
All right. How about we go to Ray for his legal update, and then we'll move back.
Cool, thank you, James. All right, so AI regulation, it's like a Shakespearean paradox. AI, yay, regulation, boring. So I hope my job's to make it just slightly interesting, slightly fun. So for background, for those who don't know, I'm a practicing tech lawyer, and I like reading AI regulation because it's an area that combines tech and legal, but also geopolitics and economics and science. So, I'm known for creating this AI regulation tracker. So quick shameless plug. If I don't cover everything, here's a free website that basically tracks AI laws around the world. For those who already know this, my latest update is that I've got a new API, so people can now tap into the data behind the tracker to create your own newsletters and the like. But I only have one slide, and I'm only going to focus on 4 key jurisdictions. So in Australia, no substantive updates. The past few months been pretty election heavy, so a lot more focus on like big energy, housing, etc. So AI has sort of taken down like the priority list, and in fact, this year's budget doesn't mention AI at all, similar to how Apple hasn't mentioned AI at all in that conference. This year's budget doesn't make any new budget provisions for AI. So that was a very notable development in Australia. But we now have a new industry minister who made a recent speech at the AFR summit, and he is calling for the whole nation to lean into AI. What does that mean? We still don't know. We have yet to see what is the policy around AI, but he has indicated a principles-led inclusive approach to AI policy. What does that mean? That's basically code for light regulation. That's for me, who has seen a lot of these AI regulation updates, that sort of wording means lightweight regulation, which is a contrast. Well, it's still the same government from the previous election, but previously there was a lot of talk around having an Australian AI Act, similar to the EU, which I'll get to later, but this seems like we're going to a lighter weight approach. Just to caveat that, I'm also going to focus on these other jurisdictions, and the question I often get asked is, Ray, I'm in Australia, why do they care about these other countries? Well, first of all, there's 2 things. If you're a startup planning to expand overseas, obviously, that's one thing, you have to comply with the laws that you're going in. But second of all, even if you're not a startup and you're just a developer, the regulations in those other countries affects your API costs. Like there's a correlation between the EU AI Act and the steadily increasing costs in APIs. Now, obviously, costs have also gone cheaper in certain respects, but there's also a lot increased regulatory costs on those companies, and you never know, one day they can just pass on these costs to you through the terms of service. Very lawyery talk, I just mentioned terms of service, but that's something to be aware of. These sort of regulations do affect the economics of how AI is provided. So starting with the US, which houses most of the big tech companies, probably one of the most notable developments was that the federal government is planning to impose a ban on state-based AI laws under their Big Beautiful Bill, which is just another name for the Budget Reconciliation Act. What the heck does that mean? So similar to Australia, US has the federal and state jurisdictions. Each of the 50 states can make their own laws, as well as the federal government can also make their laws. In the US, it's actually very tricky for a US company to build AI because each state has a different law. Some states are chill, some states are really like Tiger Mom style. So what this what this ban proposes to do is that these states can't impose any AI law at all. There are certain exceptions, but they're mostly for beneficial AI initiatives and investment. But for regulation, cut out. This has been a very controversial, contentious provision. Even within the Republican Party, they're debating it. And we're still yet to see whether this will be passed in full. But in the US, there's been a very noticeable trend of what I like to call AI's deregulation / simplification. One symbolic change was they're renaming the US AI Safety Institute, which is equivalent to our National AI Center. They renamed it to something called the Center for AI Standards and Innovation, but they basically do the same thing, it's just a different name. The big one was, the Take It Down Act was introduced. So anyone here in Australia, we're very lucky to have something called the Online Safety Act, which protects you from cyberbullying and revenge porn and all these nasty things. The US hasn't had that until today. They've now had this Take It Down Act, which helps protect them against that. I guess the main thing from this one is, if you're looking to go into the social media space, this is something to be aware of. Anything around online safety, add that to your search term list. That's a big one if you're into social media platforms. And another big one from a geopolitical perspective is that there's this AI diffusion rule, which has been recently been repealed. For context, when Biden was still in power, he had this rule that basically divided the world into 3 categories. Category 1 are US allies. They can get access to US AI chips, so your GPUs. Category 2 are your neutral partners, neither enemy, neither ally to the US. They have to have a license to be able to import these GPU chips. And third category are US rivals, so Russia, China, Iran, etc., banned from getting GPU chips. That has been proposed and it was implemented, but it was never enforced. And so right before it took into effect, the Trump administration repealed that. So we don't have that particular rule in place. There's still export controls, but the Trump administration is signaling that they're going to negotiate each government one by one on the licensing regime. How does that affect you? Well, we don't know whether Australia will be given favorable terms or unfavorable terms in regards to how we access GPUs. If you're someone who builds computers, if you're someone who's trying to host your services in Australia, costs may be really high if Australia can't get enough GPUs from the US. So that's potentially something to look out for. I'll do quickly EU and the UK. European Union, for those you might have heard of the EU AI Act. It's been in force for around 6 months, and certain parts of the act will also kick in the next few years. But there's a whole regulatory desimplification trend happening, sort of correlated with the new Trump administration, sort of pressuring the whole world to deregulate AI. Right now, the EU is having a consultation, trying to see community input on how to simplify the EU AI Act. And also, the tech chief has indicated that the EU might even postpone enforcement of the EU AI Act. This mostly would affect companies like Mistral, a France-based company, if you're using Mistral's APIs, or any other, if you're using, so a very common trend for Australian startups is to store your data in Australia, but beyond that, the next best place is to store your data in the EU, because the EU has often been regarded as the country with the bloc that has the highest privacy protections. If the EU continues with this, that will likely mean either lesser protections, or if they go the other way, more expensive server costs. So the EU is definitely a big economical question to be thinking about. And finally, the UK, this is now out of date because this morning, the Data Use in AI bill got passed through Parliament. What the heck is this bill? Well, it's basically a bill that requires tech companies to disclose copyright content that used to train the AI. This helps for those, especially if you're a creator. If you think a big tech company has sort of taken your data to use for training, if that company is based in the UK, they could be required to disclose every piece of data that they use for training, and that'll assist you with, if you want to go after that. That's a quick update. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Any questions? If not, then I guess. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
So these regulations, is anything comparable with China as well?
China, no significant developments in China since the past 3 months. I'm just covering the past 3 months updates. But China does have heaps of, actually, and when it comes to AI, the common misconception is that the EU has the strictest regulation. It's not. China has the strictest AI regulation.